research is very, very important when you start creating a brand. And then when you start, then you will know how you can develop this brand into a well-known, hopefully, fingers crossed, brand that people can relate to.
My name's Peter Sumpton, and this is the Marketing Study Lab podcast. A podcast for those that are thinking, have thought and are doing, or already have a marketing qualification. But there's a little bit of something for everyone, as we cover a whole host of marketing topics. I chat to some amazing guests, each one a superstar in their own niche. And if you have a burning marketing question already, or after this episode, get in touch, we'll chat it through. peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk, or find me on LinkedIn, the link is in the show notes. If you'd like to leave a review on iTunes, this will really help others find this podcast and spread the marketing word. Now let's get on with today's episode. Now, we covered a topic very briefly on episode 44 with Mr Ryan Holtz, which was CRM, Customer Relationship Management. How are you doing, Ryan? Hope you're listening. We skirted over the idea of what this actually is and why it's important, but not the specifics, which is what we'll be doing later on in this episode. But first, let's have a chat with Evan Wyk, a brand guardian, and believe me, after this conversation, you'll really understand what a brand guardian is and should be. Evan has worked within the media sector for over the past 20-something years and now helps brands if they're a little bit stuck in today's busy marketing landscape. Evan helps companies draw the attention of those they seek to serve, their ideal clients. But what I really want to know, and bear with me on this one, is Evan, do you prefer paint or wallpaper?
I'm going to go with paint, and I can explain why.
Okay.
Because I'm very much a minimalistic person, so I do tend to go with solid colors, and I find sometimes not all wallpaper obviously are very busy, but wallpaper can be, and I would rather like to add certain objects to my wall to make it interesting. So therefore, if I have sort of like just a solid matte color most probably behind it, then I can most probably decorate it the way I'd like to. Just put the odd thing perhaps against the wall. So to be honest with you, yeah, I'm more of a paint person than a wallpaper person. I originally thought when I read that question, when I saw the question, was that perhaps one is less messy than the other, but I don't think that's the correct answer.
No, having experience in both. That isn't true.
No,
I tend to agree with you. We moved house a few months ago, and there was wallpaper in nearly every room, and we were gonna not replace like for like, but put wallpaper where there was currently wallpaper, and we decided nope, we'll just go and paint, and now we've done it. Yeah. It looks so much cleaner. But the one thing that I do intend to do is in the room that we're recording this in now is have sort of a wall, and it was one of my guests, Ryan Holtz, that said that he's got one of these, and it's a shelf in his office, and it's just got little things that mean nothing to anyone except him throughout his life, memories or markers and things like that. So that's the plan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can definitely agree to that. Because yes, I don't know. I mean, it's just, as I said, it is. I'd rather like to have the option myself to put something there. And sometimes you do see people who have got rather busy wallpapered walls, and then they put things on top of that wall as well. So, yeah. But as I said, being a minimalist, I mean, that you can understand that this probably wouldn't go very.
Yeah, I think I'd love your house. So
I don't know. Maybe there's not a lot in here though. So
no, I love that. Everything's got its place, and
yes,
yeah, absolutely love it.
And like your friend has always said, sorry to interrupt, but things have got meaning. There are lots of things in my home, from travels that I pick up, or that it was a gift perhaps, and stuff like that. That it's got meaning to it. So I like that. I like that very much.
So tell us your story then. What's brought you to this stage in your career as an entrepreneur and brand guardian?
Well, okay. I can most probably rather give you the shorter version rather than the
Okay.
long version because I had a 20 plus years of corporate life that I had full time employment. I loved it. I wanted to do it and really enjoyed it. There were moments of much stress. There were moments of much laughter or whatever. It was great. I honestly, if I didn't have that, Peter, I wouldn't be sitting here and I wouldn't definitely not be
Hmm.
talking to you about this. So I spent the 20 years working in various business television companies and broadcasters mainly. Did ver- I did various positions within it, but I was very lucky that all the positions I have done in that 20 years, they're all interlinked with each other. So even if I would change a role or position, I always took with me what I have done or learned in the previous position. So you understand what I mean? It wasn't sort of like one position was in the finance department and then another one was in a creative department or something like that. It is all related. It started sort of with production, then it went into producing, and then it went together with producing. Then the client management thing sets in, account management, and then ended up with the last 7 years I was working for a really a worldwide global broadcaster, and ended up doing there a position which was brilliant, and that was within a brand partnership development department.
Cool.
So what happened then within the last role I did was that my position actually migrated, funny enough, to South Africa, where I was born and bred. And upon close inspection, the role that they created wasn't entirely really what I would have enjoyed. Plus, the fact that obviously I had to relocate to South Africa, which I really wasn't interested in doing after living in the UK for 25 odd years by then. So, so that's more or less when it happened that I was then offered a redundancy package. And I don't know if you've ever been in one of those situations in one
Oh
of
yeah.
those meetings, but they do sort of like pass a piece of paper over the desk to you,
Yeah.
um, with a summary of what you can kind of like walk away with if you want. And to be honest with you, I just looked at the figure at the bottom right hand corner and decided I'm going to leave the building. I'm going to take the money and run.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate. I was very lucky. It was a fantastic package. I was quite happy with it. And I decided, yes, I will definitely do that. Luckily, as well, included in the package was a month-long attendance, which the company obviously covered for, at a career development agency. And so I had a month to spend with a mentor in this agency, and we discussed all the ins and outs of what I've done over the last 20 years and where I am currently and everything. And what happened was we were talking one day, and he basically looked at me and said, "Well, from what I can make, you are what I would call a brand developer." I have never heard of a brand developer as such, or any, what I was doing being described as being a brand developer.
Mm.
But I went home that night and sort of sat down and thought about it and discussed and, think about it and went back. And then it discussed it with him a bit further, and things sort of made sense to me because that was, in particular, over the last few years at the global broadcaster, I was very closely working with clients. I was very closely working with brands, creating partnership deals between the brand that I was representing within the company I was working, and then a client's brand, and trying to seek a solution so that we can integrate the two and put it on a platform that both sides are very happy with the collaboration and the how the two come together, and upholding, basically guarding both sides' brand, not disturbing it, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
not alter anything, keep to guidelines, etc., and also find, for instance, in a sponsorship, for instance, partnership situation, the client has to fit in with what we could offer on whichever platform they want to be seen. So it was brilliant, sort of working with clients. I've done client management before. I enjoy working with clients, and it was a great position to be in because I ended up as a one-stop person. Because a lot of time in previous positions, I found that clients got a bit distracted if they need to speak to a company that you work for, because they have to deal with different departments. There is, say, for instance, you are creating a sponsorship element and a campaign for them, then lots of people are involved. Obviously, there is maybe you need to go and create something via film or video. So there is the whole production side of it. There is the whole producer, director person. There is then the creative company, the department that you work for in the company. There is things need to perhaps be going to print if it's magazines, or otherwise if it's on television, it needs to go, ingested around programs, whatever. And I was very lucky because by that stage, I have had experience of dealing and working with all the different departments that such campaigns would have to deal with. So eventually the client basically comes to me with any question, regardless whatever aspect of the campaign we are running at the moment. And fingers crossed, I had the answer. usually I'll be saying, usually I've got the answer, yes. But if not, I know where to go internally to find. So it was brilliant to build these internal relationships between me and different departments, and then carry on building a relationship with the client and make sure that they are very happy. So that is basically how I then decided, after I've done all of that and we talked about being a brand developer, I realized that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to step outside and I'm going to do my own thing. And in particular, one of the main things that I focus and concentrate on is that of being a brand guardian. So in short, I basically protect my clients' brand. I build it, I develop it for them, and make sure that it's adhered to on whatever platform they take it to.
So I think anybody that's listening, two things. One will be thinking, yeah, brand's just a logo at the end of the day. Well, nobody needs to guard it. But the more important bit would be that you said that you lived in the UK and that you didn't want to go back to South Africa. So I say 90% of the audience are just going, "What? Are you mad? Why would you not want to do that?" But if you've come from there, then it's your home, it's your homeland, but it's probably somewhere you want to escape from because of that.
Yes, I can elaborate on that a little bit as well if you want me to. South Africa, fantastic place. I've got nothing against it. All my life as a very young person, I had a dream, and my dream was, like many children or youngsters have, people want to be a firefighter or a politician, or they want to be a doctor, that kind of. Mine was to have a London address.
I love
because
it.
I believe that if I have a London address, I obviously live in London, and that's where I wanted to live. That's where I wanted to carve a career. That's where I wanted to be. I read a lot about London in particular, or United Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had an affinity for Europe, and everything I read and saw, whether that was movies or TV or reading magazines, books, or whatever. So really, that was like something I really wanted to make happen. And in particular, also, I'm coming from originally was born and bred in a very small town, South African place, small and quite conservative. And we have got to go back many years now, because this wasn't happening yesterday, okay? So when I was young, in my younger days, things like that was just unheard of, and people would just say, this is not going to happen.
Yeah, sure.
You can't have this dream. It will not happen to you. You will not be able to do this. And if you get to know me, whatever, you almost probably realize I'm one of those people. I will make things happen. I will take a challenge on board, and I will make it happen if I really, really wanted it. So I said this, as I said, this dream was very strong. And by the time the option came to move back to South Africa, I was very happy that I am making my dream come true. And I am, well, fortunately, unfortunately, however people wants to see it, wasn't really kind of interested in going back rather than forward, if that makes sense to you.
No, no, completely on a very, very, very much smaller scale. Similar thing to myself in that I always wanted to live in Liverpool, and
Right.
slight difference because
No, no,
you
no,
you
no, no, that's
you
not the point.
no,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Absolutely. So, but the difference being that yours was probably about a 12-hour flight away, and mine was about a 2-hour drive away from where I used to. But the point being that I wanted to do that, and
Yes.
yes, and we'll get on to it in a minute. But you can clearly see your passion for what you do, and your story, and where it's leading up to in our conversation after this. But there's different dreams and aspirations, and you've got a passion for one thing. But if you've got that other goal that isn't necessarily money orientated, that is such a motivator that no one can really take away from you apart from
No.
yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why, for instance, whatever. My parents were very supportive. I have to say, my family, my close family, were very, very supportive. I mean, but it was, friends is, you go to your friend's house and you go and play or whatever, and parents always have a conversation with the kids and stuff. Oh, what do you want to do one day, or. And then when I come out with this statement of mine, oh no, but I want to have a London address, kind of, they just look at you and go like, "Come on,
Yeah.
you are miles and miles away from this place. I mean, you're growing up in small town South Africa. I mean, seriously. I mean, and in those days, people didn't really just pack up and leave, kind of
Hmm.
thing. They didn't really. That wasn't nowadays. It's kind of different. Obviously, lots of people do it. But when I was young in my days, didn't. But yeah, I really wanted to do it, and I'm very happy that I did it. And yes,
That's
that's
great stuff. And I suppose again you've hit on another point there, the fact that it was something you wanted to do. It seemed like a dream and an aspiration that was far away and almost probably even to yourself felt impossible. Although you knew you could do it, it must have felt
yeah,
so difficult to get there. But again, people have this mindset of, well, you'll never do it because you're not going to do it tomorrow. And
yes,
you need to put these markers, be it 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it's the same when you're taking a CIM assignment or any kind of exam
yeah,
or course or qualification. You're not going to pass it tomorrow. You're not going to understand
yes,
everything in a week. But give it 6 months, 12 months, you will. And
absolutely.
you're moving towards that, which is just a great aspirational thing to do. So if we can move on to your
Hmm.
expertise and what you're fundamentally passionate about. Could you explain to us what a brand actually is? I know the term gets bandied around in many different contexts, some simplistic, some complex, but could you explain what a brand actually is?
I would like to put that in one little sentence from a very well-known person, and that sentence is, and I believe strongly that it's true. A brand is what people say about you or your company when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bezos said that, the Amazon great founder.
Yeah.
Um, and I honestly strongly believe that is what really a brand is all about. It's when you have discussed, you had the face-to-face or discussion or talk or meeting with people, and you've told them about a product or your service perhaps that you offer, but it is what people say once you're not there anymore. So in other words, just to explain, if people must probably don't understand, is that what people pick up from you, what they can take away from the way that you have conducted um, in talking about what is very important to you. So another example, for instance, I always sort of like think is that if you say you bought something off the internet, that there is no personal interaction. Like you go into a brick and mortar store, for instance. That's when you speak to someone, you buy a certain size or whatever. So you haven't got that. So you bought something and it arrives and you start using it, and whether you paid a lot of money for it or it wasn't that much money or whatever, you find out that this product, actual fact, as that saying goes, it does exactly what it says on the box, basically.
Hmm.
It works, and it's very practical. And let's say, for instance, it doesn't fade after a while. It's still, after a few weeks or months, it's still a good product. You can, you put it, maybe it's a kitchen utensil. You put it in the dishwasher. It stays like that. It comes out, it cleans easy, etc. So you are then definitely, most probably, with friends and family, you will say, oh, by the way, that kind of like slotted spoon or whatever I bought from so and so of whatever platform. There are many platforms out there that sells obviously stuff online. You're going to talk about that, and then you're going to say, but I looked into it, and this company does this, and they do this and this, and this product is so well and brilliant. So basically what I'm trying to say is, it is how people are going to perceive what you have told them rather than what you have sold them as such. Because in the end, they will buy something, but they are going to do that because they most probably have heard from someone or whatever that such and such a brand does brilliant stuff. And you should be happy with the brand and what they offer, and what you can get from them. So I hope that makes sense
Absolutely, yeah.
when I say that it is about, a brand is about what is being discussed when you are not there to defend the brand face to face or physically, basically.
So if we go to the very top of the brand iceberg, if you like, which would be the
Hmm.
logo, seen as
Hmm.
the head of the brand,
Yeah.
if you want to call it that. Uh, Anyone can really create a logo. Anyone can scribble on a page. Anyone can make a name up, whatever. What's the big deal about a logo?
Anyone can make a logo. You're absolutely right.
Mhm.
But my question is, can you create a logo that connects with your target audience? Can you create something that the scribble on the piece of paper, etc., that when your potential client or your target audience look at that, they can relate and they can form a bond? So what I'm coming from here is the fact that there is a lot involved. Although the general consensus is, as you said, yes, you can scribble something on a piece of paper. We can all do that. But the involvement when it comes to a logo is actually fact what happens behind the scenes, not just the orange circle you have on a black square, for instance, or whatever the logo is, whatever. It is to do with that connection that you set out, because like you said, that is the top of the iceberg of a brand, basically, is the logo. That's what people mostly are going to see, mostly are going to connect with a product or a service, etc. Now, the colors, for instance, that are chosen for that logo is really, really important. The design is really, really important. Um, these things need to be, and I hope that we'll get later on into a situation where I can speak more about this, but it is important because your potential client or your audience, they have to be able to understand when they see that there must be a connection. So if you, for instance, have a product that, let's say it is a gardening service, or yes, or a very nature service, for instance, something to do with offering something for outdoor living, etc. And all of a sudden, your logo is blasted with cerise. I'm just going to grab something at the top of my head. Say cerise pink with black spots in it, or whatever. If you think about it, I mean, people necessarily are not going to see the connection that you are creating a product, for instance, or creating a brand, or that sends out a message that we are very nature wise, or we outdoors, or we are eco-friendly, etc., etc. So really, although it does sound like it is a very easy thing to do, which the practicality of it doesn't necessarily have to be that complicated to practically sit and do it. It is what's behind your logo that really, I believe, is really important, because you have got to get a connection. You have got to make people, and subconsciously, they may not, it may be a subconscious thing where people look at something and then they can relate to that because that is what they are trying to look for or trying to find. That is, I would believe, a very, very important step. And if you miss that step, then people can look at something and go, no, that's not for me. I'm just going to move on to something else and find some other brand that can help me with what I want. Mm-hmm. So it really, and in today's world, as you must probably know, and as most people know, I mean, these people, brands and logos and stuff is everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So it is really important that you strike from the beginning that connection. So there's a lot goes on behind just doodling something on a piece of paper.
One area I think where people almost get confused is the fact that anybody can create a logo, anyone can doodle on a piece of paper, like you said, and that is fine and dandy when not when you're starting off, but when you haven't got many customers or many loyal customers or repeat customers. But when you start to grow and develop, and that needs to mean a lot more in a busier marketplace where you're competing with some maybe bigger brands or on a local scale, then it becomes important. And if you haven't got that right from the very start, you're going to struggle with those changes.
Yes, absolutely. You're definitely going to struggle. You're going to end up, sitting wondering why you are struggling to find clients. Why don't I have lots of traffic to my website? Or why don't I, say for instance, again, it's something, what if it's a service you sell online? Why don't a lot of people sign up for my courses or et cetera, or, send me an email saying, please, I need your help, whatever. And then it is difficult, very, very difficult. Then you can almost if you didn't get it right in the beginning, you should almost really start from scratch again, because you need to build that bridge basically from day one. I mean, when it comes to logos, for instance, I'm not saying that whatever you design is set in stone that for the next 40 years it's going to look like that.
Yeah.
That is not the point. I mean, as we can look at loads of logos of absolutely iconic companies over years and years, they've been coming, Starbucks, Apple, MasterCard, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. If you go back in history and you look at kind of like how their logos look like in the beginning, you will find that quite a lot of them had the idea, but as the years went by, it evolved. And it's particularly nowadays, we live in a world where things evolve very quickly. One thing I can come to mind is that MasterCard, for instance, dropped the whole name. So they got to a point where those two intertwined circles is all they need for people to look at that and go, oh, well, I know what that is. Starbucks the same. They drop literally the wording as well, because they look at that green iconic logo and everybody knows, oh, yeah, well, I know where that coffee is from. So it will evolve eventually. I'm not saying that if you design something that what you created right in the beginning, that is going to be it. As a matter of fact, you should really actually remember that it's not going to be it. To keep up with your competitors, you will most probably need to change it slightly as time goes by, because that is what people do nowadays. That the days, I believe, where something was set in stone and don't touch it, it stays like this forever. Don't it is gone, as much as what it is gone that you stay in a position at a company for 40 years, then retire, get, in those days you got a golden watch or something, and then you're in retirement. That kind of thing, it's as much as out of the window as what the logo that you created 10, 15 years ago. So yes, that's more or less what I say. I mean, but I go on about the fact that it needs to connect. There needs to be a connection between you and the people that you are targeting to buy from you. Oh, yeah.
I think that leads us nicely onto brand consistency, which is massively important for a whole host of reasons: recognition, trust, relationship building, and culture, amongst other things. But to implement this, you need control. How do you achieve this on a global scale?
Consistency is vital. Absolutely. I just want to quickly say that because it is just one of those aspects within your brand that if it is not the same, it gets very confusing for people out there. So to control that, it's a very, very good question, Peter, by the way. It can be done, although I think a lot of people will look at that or think about it and go like, oh dear me, that is so complicated. My answer usually is when you create your brand and when you start developing your brand, put together, for instance, what I would call a brand Bible. It is something that would cover your brand from A to Z, basically. Regarding colors, regarding certain dimensions, regarding your logo, it perhaps could be exactly where the logo should always be positioned on an A4 sheet of paper, landscape, and on, and another form or whatever. So if you put all of those things together, I always find it is really, really good. It doesn't have to be a very complicated document, but it could, if you just have something on paper that you can pass on to people that you're going to work with so that they know, listen, if I want to, say, for instance, we are going to definitely do a billboard outside and we will have to put the logo and the tagline of the client on this billboard. It needs to be a certain percentage of the overall area. It needs to always be in that position there, etc. So it also you can get really finicky, like I would do. It needs where it's a certain amount of space between the end of the logo and the end of the page, for instance, etc., etc. But that way, you know that your brand will be consistent wherever the people that are going to use your brand, wherever they're going to use it, your brand will absolutely be consistent wherever. And that is then when you use the word global, if you can then produce such a document to people that they can then adhere to, they can look at it, learn from it, and adhere to it, then you should hopefully be okay with you being in control of your brand. Because the last thing you need is, so many times it happened before, and that's why I believe in a brand book or a guide or etc., that you would get almost to the end of a campaign before you go live or whatever. And at that moment, you just look at something and you go like, but the logo shouldn't be there, or this is written way too much to the left, or the client is not going to be happy. And then the creative team look at you or whatever, maybe the editor or whatever you work with, look and say, listen, but I didn't know. Or perhaps what happens is the color scheme of the logo have slightly changed. The tone has gone a bit down or up, and that could be a natural thing from transferring it from one platform to another, or things like that happens. And you look at it and go like, hang on a second, and then they go like, but I didn't know this. Nobody told me. I've had so many producers looking at this and approving my work or whatever, and no one has ever said, oh, the logo, it's not, you know what I mean? So if you can manage basically that process when people are starting to use your brand on whichever platform it is, it just is going to be much easier in the end and cause far less pain and time, to be honest with you. So that would be my suggestion. I mean, and I always really try to convince people that even if, again, Peter, it doesn't have to be, like I said, a complicated document that people go through pages and pages and go like, oh, but this is what, it can just be a straightforward explanation of, listen, this is what it is. I mean, for instance, put in there your Pantone or your hex code of the colors that are allowed to use within your brand, so that when a designer, for instance, have to recreate your logo or a tagline of yours or whatever, they know that, oh, I can't just use any color of blue or any color of red. It's got to be this specific. But look here, I've got actual fact the code. And they just type in the code and, it's the correct shade or tone of the color that your brand is all about. So I would strongly suggest when people start working in companies or they are in a position where they need to handle the branding in particular of a client or the company that they work for, to put something like that together, because otherwise it's very difficult to control it. Because one person may look at this and think, well, this is the right red, and another one look at it and go like, no, my red is the right red. And
Yeah,
in the
sure.
meantime, both of them are wrong because. So
And if you think about it as well, and if you think about any large successful organization, or the majority of them, and I suppose I'm talking more B2C than B2B here, but if you take McDonald's, for example, or a high-end chain such as Tiffany, you walk into there and you know exactly what you're going to get. So your advertising and your brand and your colouring, if you walked into a Tiffany store and the bag was blue and you walked out and it wasn't Tiffany, whatever colour they call it, you'd start to devalue it and you'd devalue the products.
Absolutely, you definitely will.
And I just thought of this while we were talking. But if you want to compare it to a different department, if you compare it to sales, if sales come in and say we need to do this, and they've produced an advert, for example, hypothetically, and the logo's in the wrong place, and you say no, it needs moved to the left. They say it needs. You say it needs to move to the left, and they say, oh no, it doesn't matter. You could turn around and say, okay, we'll just move the decimal point of all these sales to the left a little bit. That matters.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. No, I mean, it may take a while to set it up, the whole document in the beginning, but in the long run, it is just going to save so much time, so much confusion. I mean, we all know that if you create any kind of campaign where you have to use a brand, I mean, that will eventually have to be signed off by the clients fairly high up, on the ladder. It's not any person necessarily, but anyway, someone who's responsible whose responsibility it is within that company and have the authority to sign something off, they will scrutinize it. They will look at it and they will go like, is this right? Doesn't,
Yeah.
So, and if it's not, they're not going to sign it off. And if you then is it a very last stage. I mean, so many times these things has to happen as quickly as possible, to get something on air, to get something to the printers for a newspaper or for a magazine or whatever. That is, it is, again, as far as I'm concerned, managing the whole process properly from the beginning. And it something like a brand book or a brand Bible just helps it to go a bit more smoother. Because also, to be honest with you, Peter, there is so much involved. I'm sure you understand that there's so much involved in getting loads of elements together for a campaign of etc. That it's not just about where the logo is. There's so many other, and definitely again so many other departments involved, and Chinese whispers happens and all that kind of stuff where someone said that, and did you say that or did you say that? It's like, so I would really strongly suggest that if it's possible to make a suggestion, if anyone wants to be in control of their brand, to have that within a company.
Okay, can you guide us through the brand creation and development process that you'd use then?
First things first, and I'm going to use the word research. So again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier on about your target audience. If you want to create a brand, let's say this is a startup, or maybe you had trouble with a brand already, like we spoke about as well, and you have to make changes and develop a new or an enhance whatever you have. I will always start with research. I will always try and find out exactly, first of all, who's your target audience. Is it youngsters? Could it be 7, 8, 9-year-old girls? Is it the 13, 14, 15-year-old boys? Or is it a grown-up person between the age of 35 and 47 or whatever? What is your target audience? Who do you want to aim your product or your service to? Once you know that, and that is where you just really have to intensively research, because once you know who you are creating something for, it will become much more easier to a degree. Because at the end of the day, we have to remember that it is not about you, it's about the client. You are creating a product or a service for someone else. You want to sell it to them. It's coming. I'm just quickly going to go back to the logo color thing, for instance. Say for instance you want to create an online course for in a financial environment, but bright pink or bright cerise or fluorescent green is your favorite color. So you're going to brand everything in that color most probably and stuff. In a financial environment, that's not really going to sit. But if you don't do research, then you're going to just think, well, I can create a brand according to what I like. I make my website look like I want it. And in the meantime, it actually isn't about you. It's about your clients. It's about your target audience. People, if you research and find out what those people like, what they like to see, what they are going to relate to, what they're going to find a connection with, you must probably find out that, they all like kind of like shades of blue, tones of blue colors, or they need to understand that you are trusting. So therefore you'll have to probably use blue. They need to see that you are a very calm and transparent firm with whatever you offer. So perhaps slot in some gray and bring in some whiter shades, for instance, or different shades of the color of white into it, because those are colors that, for instance, white is very serene. White says, I'm not hiding anything. I'm open. I'm open to suggestion. I'm open to talk to you. We are a trusting firm. You know what I mean? So research is very, very important when you start creating a brand. And then when you start, then you will know how you can develop this brand into a well-known, hopefully, fingers crossed, brand that people can relate to. So my short answer there is just one word, and that is research. Find out who are you designing for, whatever the product, the service, etc. So I would say it's really, really important to know your target audience when you start building a brand. Then things can slot in easier, and you run far less risk at the end of the day to sit there going, why isn't anyone buying from me?
Sure.
Because I'm an accountant, and in my world, everything is, a certain way. But I can tell you what, there's very little fluorescent green in my accountant department in my world. So the only thing green perhaps is maybe money. I don't know if your notes are green in the end, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm being a bit frivolous at the end of the day there.
Mm-hmm.
It's to do about, again, that connection. And that's the only way you can build a brand and create it. But research is very important, I would say. You have to start there before even you doodle on a piece of paper for a logo, before even, you say, for instance, even if you want to get a brick and mortar store together, before you even go and look at the location, before you buy the shelves, before anything, the vans that you're going to use for delivery or whatever, before you do any of that, find out who's your audience that you want this to go to, find out what they like, put yourself in your client's shoes and look at your product or service from their perspective. Once you know what they are wanting and seeing, I promise you, it's much easier then to create a product and to create a brand that they can relate to.
Just on that, most of our conversation so far has revolved around internal to external, regardless of the organisation. But from an internal perspective, which is sometimes forgotten in these instances, what can a brand achieve?
A brand can achieve a lot of confidence, I would say. They can achieve recognition of expertise, perhaps even as well, quality. And I think all of that boils down to one thing, and that in my book is customer service. So if you, for instance, have a great customer service, then your brand can most probably, even if your product or your service hasn't got the most amazing quality or the most amazing free gifts or whatever they offer, freebies left, right, and center if you sign up here or whatever. But if you can create a customer service within your company that is absolutely in tip-top shape, if anything happens, I mean, and particularly nowadays when lots of things happening online, as I said previously as well, you do not have this physical interaction with someone where you can talk and discuss and say, listen, this happened, I lost the button or whatever, whatever, whatever. So you have to do this electronically, really. And then again, if you can offer a fantastic customer service, then people most probably will come back and back and back again. You know, there are places that I use, honestly, just from a personal point of view, and one of the reasons most probably is, if not the top reason, the fact that the customer service is absolutely superb. So I think you can achieve as a brand, you can achieve a lot. You can make people sit up. You can, you know, it's the thing, for instance, when they see a certain color or a certain snippet of your logo or whatever, they'll be able to say, yeah, that's them. That's the brand, that's the company, etc., etc. But if your customer service is going to be not very good, if people have to struggle to get in touch with you, struggle to complain, if they have to struggle to just get in touch and say, thank you very much, this is a wonderful product, or they do, and they get no response back whatsoever. I mean, that kind of thing, I think, in today's world is really very bad.
Yeah.
And that can damage your brand badly. You also, another thing when it comes to customer service, if you get any feedback from a client, positive, negative, address it. You know, if somebody has the time to sit down and write a few words down and say, thank you for this amazing product, you as a brand and as a company, why would you wait 3 weeks before you reply to them? Thank you very much. We appreciate your feedback.
Yeah.
And definitely, if they find fault with something, you are onto that. If they've got anything to say that's in a negative, you're onto that. And in a very good manner, you find out exactly what is the issue here and work through it and come to a conclusion and help that client out. So I would say a great customer service will make your brand achieve a heck of a lot, more so than the company that can't be bothered to have a good customer service. Definitely.
So at this part, I usually try and find a really good segue into this next section. So what I'm going to say is hopefully you can be bothered with these quick fire questions.
Okay, let's try.
Name one.
No, I can't be bothered.
Name one must-read business book.
Right. My business book is sort of not really the business kind of book, but the book I would like to mention is Strength Finder 2.0 by a guy called Tom Rath. This book is more to do, it is an electronic assessment, actually. That's what it is. You do it online. You buy the book, you get a code, you log onto the website, and then you assess yourself, basically. Now, the reason why, Peter, why I actually want to mention this instead of a business book as such is because this is something that if you can do this in the beginning of your career, when you get out there and you start working with clients or with other people or with departments within a company, etc., it makes you understand of who you are. It gives you ultimately, for instance, one of the things, 5 themes of what you as a person are and how you deal with situations and how you deal with people and how you get to where you want to be. And for me, this is really, really important because I wish that I had this opportunity to do this course in the beginning of my career, because that would just have solved so many issues I had for quite a few years. Because, I mean, the thing is, sometimes you're in a company and you do things and your manager doesn't like the way you do it. They don't like the way you speak on the phone or whatever. There's and you just sit there sometimes and you think, why? What am I doing
Yeah.
wrong? I mean, I'm not a bad person, but you criticize me constantly, or you don't like the way I write an email or whatever. But to do this assessment and find out kind of like why perhaps you do things the way you do it, that gives you that understanding that you can take with you. So for students, I mean, I know, as I said, it's not a business book as such, but for me personally, it was an incredible, great personal development book that I really wish I did take this assessment in the beginning of my career, as I said.
Okay.
But I would really, Strengths Finder 2.0. I mean, I can easily recommend, I can definitely recommend it to people, definitely even if they just start out. But at some point, it's a brilliant book.
What was the last thing you Googled?
The last thing I Googled actually was um, if I can get a DVD of the movie We Need to Talk About Kevin. Do you know? Do you know the book? Do you know the movie?
No, I don't know.
It is a phenomenally very intense, thought-provoking book from Lionel Schiffer that she wrote many years, quite a few years back. It is an incredible. Whew, it is a book I read. I don't know if you can. I tell you the story about the book that
Absolutely,
I
go
read?
for it.
um, it is basically a family about a mother who had two children and a husband, and how these kids were brought up and what happened in the end with her 16-year-old son. It took me through hell and back, to be honest with you. That's why it shouldn't be my favorite book, but it is. It's absolutely. I mean, in short, when I started reading it on holiday, a first quarter into it, at the end of the holiday, I wanted to leave the book in the hotel room, couldn't be bothered to take it home. Decided, no, it's okay, it will look fine on the bookshelf, take it home. Got back, eventually talked to friends about the holiday and about the silly book I'm reading. I don't want to read it anymore. And friends said, no, keep reading until the end. It could be quite tough, but just keep reading. And I did. And eventually, after some time, when you get to the last few sentences of the book, it's insane. But how I got to Google it is because I watched another favorite movie of mine, a recent one, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Mm-hmm.
And Ezra Miller is actually a character in the movie.
Okay.
And he kind of, there was something in his looks that I thought, I don't know, but I think I've seen it before. And then prior to looking for the DVD, I Googled him, and then it came about that he was actually Kevin in this movie that I
Okay.
saw most probably about 10 odd years ago. And I decided, I've got to see it. I want the DVD. So I Googled that and I've got it now. Sorry, that's a very long way of answering that question.
That's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that. What is your most used app at the moment?
Very easy to give you that one. Adobe Spark Post. It is an app on my mobile device. You can also get it on your desktop if you want to. It is a perfect app if you want to create any of the visuals for any of your social media feeds and platforms. And I even create my visuals for my blog post, my journal post on my website in the app. The best feature of it, apart from loads of other things, different fonts, colorings, layouts, etc., is the fact that it gives you the exact dimensions for each post that you want to put on a certain platform. For instance, a little bit of an irritating thing, and personally for me, is the fact that people would post on Twitter, for instance, something that is not in the right dimension. So about half the visual is gone. I know kind of how it happens. Perhaps they schedule it all to go out on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, Twitter, all at the same time. And therefore, it's very difficult to resize images. But from my point of view is that I really think you need to be really proud of your brand. And if a place like Twitter says to you, it needs to be this by this pixels, then I really think the best for you to do is actually really do it like that and come across when people go through their feed to see that you are serious about your brand. You're proud of what you put out there. It is in the right format. You know, we don't unfortunately live in a world where all the formats is the same across the board and the spectrum of all our social feeds, but that's just the way it is. And I think most probably it will stay like that because Twitter is Twitter and Facebook is Facebook, etc., etc. So this app, all the dimensions is in little kind of like templates at the bottom of the row. You tap it, you create. It's quick and easy. I lots of times sit whilst I'm having a cup of coffee in a coffee shop, for instance, and do something for a post of mine on Twitter or a post on Instagram or an Instagram story or whatever.
That's cool. I've used it a little bit, but
yeah, really, I mean, it's just so, and the more you use it, it gets easier. And also, what is brilliant, they are constantly making it easier and adding lovely new features to it. So, Adobe Spark Post. If you do social media, if you're into social media management, but again, you know, if you're going to go into a marketing kind of like department of a company, you must probably have to deal with how, again, you're going to put your brand out or the company's brand out to perhaps, or deal with, you know, the social media team, et cetera, et cetera. And again, very important to get it right. We're getting back to the brand Bible thing, aren't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, Adobe Spark Post. I've used it loads and loads and loads of times. It's just brilliant.
Okay, what would be a one tip for people who are studying at the moment?
You know, okay. I would definitely say focus on your studies and take it seriously because I mean it is a time where you are going to learn things that hopefully, fingers crossed, you are going to use, you know, in your life to come. Maybe lots of people study 4 or 5 years and walk away and say, no, I'm not going to be a lawyer anymore. So, but that's not what I mean. So yeah, focus on what you are doing, definitely, because and have your mindset right to do. One of the reasons you're going there is to learn. You're not only going to college or university to party. I mean, but saying that, do take time to enjoy yourself. And the reason why I say that you definitely have to not always sit behind your books or always in the library, etc., etc. Do spend time, because to a degree that is still a very carefree environment and life you are living. Once you are stepping out of the world of university, college, or further education, and you enter the world where you are working in a company and you are, you know, have responsibilities by keeping your own roof above your head and getting your own food on the table, etc., etc. Those responsibilities are going to set you up in a world where it's not always that carefree. In particular, say for instance, you go into a company, they're going to have rules and regulations. You're going to have a manager. You are most certainly going to have a manager who's going to look at what you do all the time, ask you constantly where things are. Have you done this? Where are you with this? Why is this not done? Have you spoke? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You are going to get, and at least when you are studying at the moment, you have a bit of freedom where you know, you have to study, you have to attend class. Yes, yes, yes. But you can, to a degree, you can have a good time and enjoy yourself because, I mean, you are going to be lumbered in the real world, in inverted commas, as I sit here. And that is then a serious stuff, because if you want to make a success of your career, you have to take it then seriously. You have to show your company, your client, your manager that you are serious and you can do this stuff. And then there's, you know, so I would say, yes, focus, but don't forget to enjoy yourself.
Final quickfire question: Photoshop or Illustrator?
Oh, Peter. Can I be on the fence with this one, please?
Oh no, you got to pick one.
It really depends, obviously, what you want to achieve. If you want to achieve sort of like vector designs, it's Illustrator. If you want to do Photoshop, what do I most probably will have to go with Illustrator because of the fact that I'm very much involved when it comes to clients' logos and creating what they're going to look like on paper or screen, etc., etc., what their brand is going to look like, you know, the banners, etc. So most things that I most probably would be involved in is the kind of like flat vector images of a client brand.
Cool.
So I have to go with Illustrator. Although I do love Photoshop, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
When you want to create something visually, in the sense of, you know, photographs of etc. That kind of thing. I mean, Photoshop is really quite important as well. I mean, if you don't mind, I'd just quickly like to say, anybody that is studying at the moment that wants to go, for instance, into the marketing world, I think they should have a knowledge of both, if possible. So even if it's not necessarily that they will be asked to work within the application, if they are going to explain to a client, for instance, why, if they have to explain why something is taken X amount of time to create a logo, they know they can confidently explain. Because lots of times, clients don't understand this stuff. Why does it take me 5 days to create me a logo?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's 3 colors and a few lines and a piece of paper. So I would definitely just hammer on the fact that an understanding of those applications is important, because then you can confidently manage a client's expectations and explain it does take X amount. You can't just have it tomorrow morning, since it's now 6 o'clock on Tuesday evening. You can't have it by 8 o'clock. So that's probably what I would go with.
Evan, that's a great point to finish on. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just final question. If people want to find out more about yourself or get in touch with you, where should they go?
Right. First of all, thank you very much for having me, Peter. I really appreciate you asking me. It was a pure pleasure for me to have a conversation with you about something that I quite love.
Brilliant.
And I'm sorry, I think we've gone way over the time, by the way, as well.
No,
so
that's absolutely fine. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been amazing.
Where people can get in touch with me. Twitter at Evan Wyk _, or one word _. On Instagram, it is at evan.wyk. Facebook is Evan Wyk, as in WYK, by the way, EVANWYK. My website is evanwyk.com, and LinkedIn is Evan Wyk as well. So it's those are what have I left out? I've got Instagram, I've got Twitter, LinkedIn. I think I've covered them all, haven't I? Yes.
Yep. Evan, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you. Much appreciated. Definitely. Thank you for your time.
So now you know exactly what a brand guardian is and does. But what is a brand then? Evan explained that a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. I don't think he meant a bit of bitchin'. Well, I know Jeff Bezos didn't mean that when he said it anyway. It goes deeper than a name, a brand that is. It's a perception of quality that spreads further than an organisation can do itself. People remember what you told them, not what you sold them. Now, consistency of brand is also vital, especially on a global scale. If it isn't the same, your target market will be getting confused with who you are and what you actually do. The best way to counteract this or control it, a brand Bible, a set of guidelines that is the encyclopedia of your brand. And who doesn't love a good encyclopedia? And finally, a brand is important for the internal company benefits, as well as the benefits it will bring to an audience or target market. This means it can build confidence, improve quality, and increase the expertise by attracting the best candidates. All of which subsequently means a better customer service. And finally, on this week's episode, we look at a CRM, a customer relationship management tool. What do we mean by customer relationship management? Simply put, it's a massive diary and address book for an organisation. Let's get a bit more technical here, put some meat on that bone. A CRM is an approach that an organisation decides to take in regards to its interactions with potential and current customers. And this needs to use software to have some input, to manage it, and also analyse the information that's going into it. Now, the idea behind a CRM is that if all the information about a customer or set of customers is stored in the same accessible location and kept up to date, which is key, then this will make it easier to serve them, your customers that is, and ultimately drive revenue. It also offers the opportunity to chop and manipulate the data to produce analytical reports that help in understanding the makeup of your customer base and any current trends that you can take from that data. That's why it's so important to have valid, relevant, up-to-date information being put in to a CRM all the time. Some CRM systems, such as Salesforce, can now be integrated with other software that allows further admin, marketing, financial, and sales functionalities, creating efficiencies within a business and a seamless journey from the customer's perspective. See, all this ends up with the same thing: helping your target market or your customers have a better journey, a better UX, a better experience. So you should always try and see it from the customer's perspective. Thank you so much for joining us today on Marketing Study Lab. It really means the world that you're listening to this out there. And hopefully I've provided you some value. If you're looking to know more about what Marketing Study Lab does and is about, go to marketingstudylab.co.uk or get in touch with me personally, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or feel free to email me at peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk. Happy marketing.